Another edition of Todd's Odds with our sports betting analyst, Todd Fuhrman. And before we get into our discussion this week, Todd, your Las Vegas Golden Knights, a team for which you are a season ticket holder, now eliminated from postseason contention. Just a quick postmortem, perhaps, on Kelly McCrimmon's squad.
You know what? I was hoping, Jay, that I was going to get a partial refund for my season tickets that I'm convinced I've paid through the 2032 season. But at this point, I'm just hoping that the Knights decide to add a little team speed. That was the one thing that really stood out to me against the Oilers. The Knights, we thought they had great depth. We thought they were going to be stout along the blue line. But Edmonton was just faster in all facets of the game. And for long stretches, it appeared that only Jack Eichel was capable of playing at the kind of pace you needed. And whether that's an indictment on the Golden Knights going forward or maybe a harbinger of things to come for the Oilers, that was my biggest takeaway, seeing game 1 and 2 in person. And Jay, I cannot tell a lie. I parted with tickets to Game 5. I watched Game 5 with my family and was rooting for the Oilers to put the Knights to bed.
Yes, because the Oilers are your Stanley Cup pick. Now, we're in the conference final era of the NBA and NHL for this season. And your Oilers, the co-favorite to win the Cup now, along with the Florida Panthers. Edmonton, just a slight favorite to win the Western Conference final matchup against Dallas. So how much of a believer are you, Todd, in your Cup pick to win this Western Conference final?
I'm not going to waver in my belief. I think the Oilers, since Game 3 of that opening round series against the Kings, really found something. And what we've seen from this Oilers team so far this postseason, they've been able to win low-scoring, low-event hockey games like we saw against the Golden Knights. They've been able to outscore some of their shaky goaltending for stretches with a ton of depth. And I think the biggest takeaway that I've seen from the Oilers so far through the first 2 rounds is for the first time in a long time, they're outscoring their opponents at 5-on-5 when Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl aren't on the ice. So I think that is a recipe for success. But no doubt Dallas will provide one of the biggest and stiffest challenges, not just so far, maybe of the entire playoffs. When you look at how Miro Heiskanen is starting to return to form, Thomas Harley more than capable of being a true number one. And we've seen what this team can do generating chances from their top 3 lines. And that's without production from Jason Robertson and Wyatt Johnson thus far. So I think we are in store for what should be a phenomenal Western Conference semifinals. And the biggest fear factor of all, Jay, Jake Ottinger potentially outplaying the tandem of Stuart Skinner and Cal Pickard in the Edmonton net.
Over in the Eastern Conference, the Panthers beat the Leafs in 7, setting up the Florida-Carolina Eastern Conference final. And you did a terrific job explaining to us why, when the playoffs started, Carolina was actually FanDuel's favorite to win the Cup. But now, Todd, out of the 4 teams remaining, they are the 4th pick to win the Cup. Why is that, Todd Fuhrman?
And this is all about power rating now, Jay. Carolina power rates as the 4th best team of the 4 teams remaining. So the odds very much in line with the potential path that sits in front of the Hurricanes if they're finally going to break through and win the Stanley Cup with Rod Brind'Amour behind the bench. We mentioned how favorable it was, a road that had the New Jersey Devils as their first-round opponent and, of course, the Washington Capitals. And credit to Carolina, they made relatively quick work of both of those opponents. Now they step up in class, trying to avenge the Eastern Conference Finals from 2 years ago in a series that was a heck of a lot closer than that 4-0 series scoreline looked like. Freddie Anderson is arguably playing some of the best hockey we've seen. And when you assess where Carolina's strengths and weaknesses are, they're going to need to get production from their bottom 6. I know everyone in Leafs Nation pointing at the lack of production they got from Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, rightfully so. But the thing that was apparent to me, especially in the Game 5 and Game 7 defeat, the Leafs got next to nothing from their bottom 6. So even if Carolina is able to create a stalemate against that very talented 3rd line of the Florida Panthers, that's a win. And they're going to need Seth Jarvis, Sebastian Aho, and Andrei Svechnikov to score some of those timely goals, knowing that Bob is more than capable of stealing a game, if not an entire series.
Okay, let's go over to the NBA now and take a look at FanDuel's odds for the NBA championship. Hamilton, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and the Thunder, heavy favorites to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy. Do you believe the Thunder are a foregone conclusion to win, Todd, or do you see value in any of the other 3 teams?
I mean, given what we've seen so far in this NBA postseason, I think it's tough to make a compelling case for one of these overwhelming favorites. I mean, you look at the price placed on Cleveland for their series against the Indiana Pacers. They went down as a massive favorite. The Boston Celtics did the exact same against the New York Knicks. And the one thing about the Thunder, outside of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, do we have enough confidence in some of their shot makers to get shots to fall, especially when they go on the road. The one thing about this Timberwolves team that they're going to be placing in the Western Conference Finals is they have just as much depth as Oklahoma City does, and they have multiple ways they can beat you. So I think Oklahoma City is definitely a worthy favorite, but I would not write off any of those other three teams on the board. And look, what poetic justice it could potentially be if we had Julius Randle and Cat playing head-to-head after those two were traded for one another last offseason.
Yeah, that would actually be pretty awesome when you think about it. SGA is the favorite to win Finals MVP, the Hamilton, Ontario native. Do you like that choice, Todd, or do you have any other picks you'd like to throw in there?
I do think that if Oklahoma City goes on to win their first NBA championship in franchise history, it's got to be all about SGA. You look at the scoring disparity between him and some of the other depth pieces, and like we talk about around the Super Bowl, Jay, a direct correlation between the Super Bowl winning quarterback, whether it's Patrick Mahomes or somebody else. I think that's why our friends at FanDuel have Shai's number very similarly priced to what it is on OKC, because I just don't think there's a path that if the Thunder do win the title, that it's somebody outperforming Shai. So if you want to try and back the Thunder, I would definitely back him as MVP at right around minus $1.60 instead of laying the $1.80 on the Thunder. And one last thing, Jay, my fondest memory of the great city of Hamilton, the quality time I spent at the Sheraton Hotel adjacent to the Copps Coliseum.
I'll say this, downtown Hamilton is an absolute trip. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Todd Fuhrman, big Hamilton guy. When we return on the show, the On Rights and Wrongs, Canada's most popular sports television segment.